Yo, 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 welcome to the Spaceless Realms Podcast. And today I'm here with Kalki, Sonia Morikawa, Captain Nemo, and many other different forms of yeah, exactly. Kalki showing his true form, his warrior mode. So yeah, today I'm here and Kalki is here as well, and we will be speaking about the knowledge of good and evil, the the archetype of Jesus and the Antichrist, Satan, and how that ties in with how we live our lives and how we can learn to learn to wield the power of the universe between these two opposing forces of energy. For example, like the light that is being able to light up the room that we are in. Imagine just like how powerful that energy is just to be able to give electricity to so many different people's homes. And if that is used improperly, it could kill millions of people. But at the same time, it's helping so many people live. So yeah, Kalki, that was a little introduction to our talk today. So
hmm
you can go on now.
I think the polar opposition between what our concepts of good and evil are, which usually progress throughout societies, throughout the ages, throughout different civilizations, different ethnicities, even the concept of good and evil in certain senses, the words themselves, if you think of evil, right, that's live backwards. So when you're evil, you desiccate, you dry up, you decay, you decompose, you corrupt yourself, you oxidize yourself. When you live, which is like livity, for example, the Rastafarian concept of livity or italism has to do with living, being alive by putting live nutrition in your body, putting something that's healthy. So the idea of good and evil to me is there's a very clear-cut distinction between certain concept of good and certain concepts of evil. But in French, we don't really have a word for evil. It's good and bad. So in a romantic tongues, I feel like it's very interesting to see the distinction between good and evil. We could dig into this from an academic perspective, from a world wisdom literature perspective. But what's very interesting to look at all that is that there's only a fraction of the truth in each of those disciplines. There's only sometimes people, as you said earlier, can be a little bit too scientifically inclined, too historically, empirically focused. They could be focusing on the history of the victor of the religion that's been controlling the concepts of spirituality or good and evil without actually realizing that that's a sectarian division. It's a sectarian perspective. It's one angle of the truth, hence where the term anglophone actually comes from. It's an angle of perspective, and it became a hegemonic, a dominant angle that English dominated the whole world with its anglophone
Yeah, yeah,
principles, with its
yeah, bro.
anglophony, we should say, or like, was an Anglicism, but as a Francisism, francophonie. To be frank is to be honest. So if you have the opposition of good and bad, it doesn't seem quite as far-fetched as good and evil.
Yeah. Like a lot of people, like I feel like the whole thing with like the New World Order is to make people only blind themselves with what they think is good. So then when someone is just being honest with them, they think that they're evil. Did you hear what I said? Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It glitched for a little bit for a fraction of a second, but I get the gist of it for sure.
Yeah,
And it's
I'll
it's very
rephrase it.
interesting. Yeah, please.
I'll rephrase it. So like I feel a lot of people are very ignorant of the honesty that they can have with themselves. And that's part of the New World Order of just brainwashing people, making them blind to the fact of embracing their true self. Because it's hidden behind ignorance and like veils of ignorance. And I feel like that ties in a lot with what people think is good and what people think is evil and who people think that they actually are, how that ties in with the subconscious mind and the conscious mind and how people just go day to day in their lives and do what they do, you know?
hmm Yeah, you're right, because there's certain you're right. The New World Order is all about the surface idea of good and evil. This idea that there are absolute polar opposites that cannot be denied, and
Yeah.
that are absolutely inalienable rights or something, or inalienable concepts that you could literally, posit your entire life on. You're going to go to hell for sure if you do this. You're going to go to heaven for sure forever if you do that. But there's these polar extremes, which in reality very oftentimes are cultural, religious, ethnic perception, sometimes not at all ethnic, sometimes very religious, but not at all ethnic. And they have to do with conquering and dominating with the subjugating perspective. So I think that's a lot of what you're actually expressing in that sense as well about the New World Order, trying to dominate with one single perspective and collapsing quantum physics and quantum realities of the diaspora of multiple ethnic traditions and multiple backgrounds of spirituality across the planet, across the cosmos, which have much more fluid terms of what good and evil can actually represent. And there's a whole spectrum in between that we don't usually consider.
Yeah. Huh. So then what is
Oh,
someone do?
for example, if you look at in Gnostic theory, which kind of flips Christianity all around from a matriarchal perspective, the patriarchal Christianity we know from a Gnostic perspective is a lie. So Sophia is the actual goddess, which is the embodiment of wisdom. It's the eon of wisdom. Sophia, who comes from Andromeda, actually drops down into Earth in human form, incarnates in the form of Sophia in multidimensional reality. And all the different Sophias are different avatars of Sophia, of wisdom. And then you look at all the other names that people might have: desired, bliss, love, a translation of lion, or another word, or warrior, or all the names that we've forgotten the roots and the origins to, can actually define our destiny and trace our path between good and evil to make us walk that middle path, which seems impossible to walk in the age of 80 sins. And it can allow us to actually transcend this duality that we're stuck in corporate or colonial society.
Yeah. Wow. So it's like
So,
it's like
oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's like your name and your identity is a key to entering the game of good and evil and the whole evolution of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
Because it
Yeah, you
allows.
can literally trace your destiny biochemically with your name. You can trace your biochemical elemental composition. You can trace, like, for example, if you look at the roots, I mean, that's from a Latin perspective, obviously, because the periodic table of element, we don't have we've lost many of the original translations of it. But in the Western science, even, you can trace Western names and their origins and roots. For example, mine, Antoine, comes from antimony. So that's element number 51 in the periodic table, which originally would have had the initials AN, but became stibium, I think SB or something like that.
Oh, yo, bro. Sorry to interrupt you, but that just gave me the idea of how like the Jewish alphabet is numbered as well. Like their letters are numbered. So
They're
each,
alphanumerical, yes.
yeah. So I think that's really cool. Like really smart as well, because it all just like maps up to like Jewish mysticism.
Yes, talking about that, there's a book by Michael Drosnin called The Bible Code that actually decrypts the Torah's encryptions alphanumerically and explains that, for example, there's all kinds of predictions that are prophesied within the Torah to happen, including the ones that Nostradamus predicted and many others, like collapses of the Twin Towers, a number of different things. He maps out the code to that very interestingly. He's got a sequel follow up to that to a long time ago, but it explains how there's the alien remains of a certain race that brought the original matriarchal Torah on sapphire tablets that, corresponds with SPIR. I forget how it translates in the Aramaic alphabet, but the alphanumerical encryption of ADM, interestingly enough, is 45, which is the blueprint to light. 4 from 5 is actually the transition, the shift from 4D to 5 consciousness. To spiritual consciousness actually corresponds with the letters ADM, which is ADN doubled up. Like, so DNA doubled up in French is ADN, and then that corresponds with Adam, or ADN, or ARN, which is the much more ancient ribonucleic acid code, which determines certain reptilian patterns in our bodies, and which is very ancient, primordially almost undecipherable for scientists. Actually has to do with an encryption in Aramaic as well too, and the root word Aryan, which has to do with Persian people and not with white supremacists of Hitler's race. That has nothing to do with that. A lot of words have been misappropriated and mistranslated and inverted in the age of 80 sins. They say in the final age that we're living in this age of mass extinction, everything will become opposite inverted. So even in the sacred scriptures that are corrupted, it speaks how in the end good will become evil, evil will become good, forbidden will be lauded and will be, commended. And then what should be commended and lauded will be despised and denied and ridiculed and criticized and ostracized and denied as conspiracy theory.
Please go deeper on that. Please go deeper on that, because I
Well,
feel
say,
like,
for example, that the idea of Gnosticism that I didn't finish earlier ties in directly to that.
Yeah, like it's like this whole world is like a backwards game.
It is. So in Gnosticism, what they say is that they pray to the goddess instead of praying to God. They say that God the Father is called the demiurge in Gnosticism. He's an evil god, an evil being, an ancient alien race who tries to control the patriarchy, submission, domination, eternal sin, eternal hellfire, threatens powers. In indigenous traditions, they call them Wendigo. In Islamic traditions, they call them Shaitan. But then you
Ah,
have to
yeah.
study those roots to actually realize that Yahweh quite possibly could have been the father in an alien sense to Allah later on. And in the same story that repeats itself from the pattern of Abraham and Hagar, like his so-called maidservant who was a slave from Africa. Abraham rapes Hagar and Ishmael is born, which is where Islamic traditions originated from. And in the same overlapping pattern, their gods and divinities, or those beings that they worship in a patriarchal sense, could have been patriarchs who actually raped and conquered and pillaged and instaured religions as a dominant patriarchal subtext. But then if you look at mystical traditions, Ahmadiyya, Sufi, Baha'i, Ismaili, you know, even Shia, like all the different Muslim traditions that are mystical and matriarchal, they've created some of the greatest wonders of the world in poetry and art and architecture and mathematics and philosophy and astronomy. But then you look at what patriarchy has brought us in religion, and it's absolute horror, it's ultimate evil. So really the root of ultimate evil, I would say, comes from patriarchy, heteronormativity, queerphobia, misogyny, bigotry, ignorance, racism, greed. But the seven deadly sins are not what we think them. Those would be the seven deadliest sins to me. And abuse, because the root of religion, religare, religioso, to bind, to submit to a patriarchal god, is submission, is oppression, is slavery. It's not freedom. The root of religion has nothing to do with spirituality. As I think it's Deepak Chopra who said, and I think it's a very interesting quote, even if it's overquoted. He said, religion is, and maybe I'm paraphrasing slightly, but I believe he said, religion is somebody else's sexuality as having your own.
Hmm. Why do people feel the need to say sorry?
I think in Canada, it's like this rite of passage. It's a national. You say sorry for everything. You
Yeah.
beat someone up, you're gonna say sorry. Can I take you to a hospital after? That's just a Canadian thing for us. I don't know. For me personally, that's how I grew up. I say sorry all the time for everything, but then I'm barely. There's other situations where I won't be apologetic at all.
Hmm.
But sorrow, the root of sorry is sorrow, right? You feel sorrowful for something wrong that you did. I mean, I'm trying to take it more etymologically, but that's basically what it is. Whereas in Spanish, you would say perdóname, right? Forgive me. And, say in Quechua, I believe you would say pasque.
Yo, I want you to see what kind of information you can channel about service to self and service to self compared to service to others. And also there's a mixture of both. But I feel like the knowledge of good and evil ties in a lot to whether you want to serve others or serve yourself. And
So the perfect way to start with that, actually, because I think that's exactly what a large part of the new age, which is mainstream and tied into the same patriarchal religious oppression, has flipped that around and made you believe that service to self is service to others, but it's the other way around. True
exactly,
service
bro. I've been
to self
brainwashed by that,
is
bro.
service to others. So that's another thing that's been flipped upside down. People keep telling you got to take care of yourself, otherwise just take all the time you need for yourself and then nothing for others. But what I've found in my life is that the more I give others, the more I would not be in the position
Wait,
I'm in right now if it
I'm
wasn't
sorry,
for what I've done for others and what they've given back to me.
bro. Rewind a little bit because your mic glitched out.
Okay. So essentially, I feel like true service to self is service to others, but true service to others is not service to self. But that's been turned around. These days, they tell you take care of yourself, otherwise you can't take care of anyone else. Somebody has told me it's impossible when you're sick to take care of anyone. I deny that to the highest degree. because I've seen some of the sickest people that are, dying from cancer, everything. Like my mother, for example, she's got cancer, she's got Alzheimer's, but she's still doing everything she can for the whole world. And nobody can ever convince me that because she's not healthy, she's not able to help others. She's literally killing herself at her job to make sure that her students and me have a better future. And that's something that's infinitely honorable. To me, I would never tell somebody who's dying of cancer and trying to be militant for the rights of cancer patients, or somebody in a psych ward who's tortured, that because they're not well according to the new age philosophy, that they can't help anyone until they help themselves. I think that some of the people that have helped the world the most, and some of the greatest instances of martyrs, of revolutionaries, of heroes, of legends, of myths, are the people who have selflessly given themselves to their very life and their integrity, their physical safety, their sexual, emotional safety, everything. They've sacrificed it all in service of others. And that, to me, is the greatest sacrifice anyone could ever do. But it should not be necessary.
Huh. Yeah, like personally, like because I've been getting more into like running and just like physical fitness and physical health and well-being, I've noticed like I've missed that aspect of myself because that's what really changed my life in the first place. So like it's kind of like I'm going back to my roots of what changed who I am in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hear what I said or did I
I
say?
feel that. And I feel like I've had to find a balance between health for myself and health for others. But that balance to me was always found in helping others, not in ignoring them.
Yeah.
And when I say help, I mean just being there, being of assistance, being of like, help is a word that's charged with ableist connotations these days. But,
Yeah.
sometimes I've asked for help and I've been glad to receive it.
Yeah. Yeah, like I just help people like kind of like unconsciously. I feel like that ties in with like being in unconditional love and always just being like a free, like an unlimited source of free flowing energy. Like in my dream last night, I was walking through a field of dead flowers and I was able to bring all those flowers to life just by walking through that field, just because my
Wow.
presence and my aura. It was
That's
super,
magic.
yeah.
Those are the kind of dreams I live for. I've
Yeah.
had very rare instances of that. I've had moments where I felt so sure of myself that I would walk in downtown Montreal or in Toronto or in Edmonton, and I'd be dropping the seeds of fruits and imagining them sprouting instantly into full grown trees in other densities so that everybody could eat free fruit in the city. Like,
Wow.
to me, that's creative imagination. The same thing as your dream in that sense, but you're manifesting that in the dream. I was hoping for it. You're manifesting it.
Yeah. And then when I woke up, I was a little bit like depressed because I was like, man, I could be so much more in this world and I want to be. But so it's all part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I trusted the divine. I want to build a relationship with the divine. I feel like
Oh,
that's
of course.
yeah, I feel like that's really key. Like that ties in with like service to self and also service to others is seeing the divine in yourself and also in everything and everyone around you. And in turn, that's
That's why, to me, the ultimate.
yeah, go on. The
Oh,
ultimate,
sorry. It glitched, and I thought you finished talking. My apologies.
the
I was
ultimate.
gonna say the ultimate service. What you're saying, like the ultimate service to the divine, is to me Dharma Sanatana in Sanskrit. Like in Sanskrit, what they say is eternal divine duty is to be in service and devotion to all sentient beings for all of existences.
Dharma Satanata. Dharma
Yeah,
Satanata.
Dharma Sanatana or Dharma Sanatana.
Huh. Yeah, bro, like I took a cold shower earlier and I should have thought twice before I did what I did. But there was like like a mosquito eater or something like that, like a little like insect in the shower, and I drowned him, bro, by accident. I drowned him.
Oh no.
I know.
But that's not your fault. Just say some prayers for it.
Yeah, I did.
Hope to reincarnate by a dragon somewhere.
Yeah, like after I got out of the shower, like I prayed for it. I was so upset.
No, that it's happened to me too. Trust me, Bridget. And I cry when that happens sometimes. And some people have thought that I'm soft for doing that, and I'm like, no, you don't get it. I could kill 10,000 evil macho men in 2 seconds and sleep no problem. But then you make me kill one insect accidentally, I'm gonna start crying.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting topics to ponder. I would say ponder the microsentient spaceships too. We should think about the insects all the time. So it's good that we actually, I feel like it's a good place to end on that conversation, to actually talk about that and to talk about the microcosms that live underneath us, because we're a microcosm to other beings that are much bigger than us too. And they could look at us like insects and think that if we don't care about them, why would they care about us?
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
No, 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 no. You're not. You have nothing to be sorry about. You didn't do that on purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm. All right. Is there anything you want to add off to finish it off?
I think honestly, like, we didn't really talk much about Yeshua. To me, Jesus was a revolutionary Rasta. I just want to say that people have completely misinterpreted who he is, who they are. I could even say, um, and I believe he was married to Mary Magdalene. That's also part of the Gnostic Gospels. I do believe in the lineage of Christ. I believe in the lineage of King Solomon. I believe in Jah. I believe in Empress Menen. I believe in all traditions across the planet that are not sects, that are not cults, that are not religions, but that are faiths, that are spiritualities, that are philosophies, that are art movements. I believe in a lot of different mystical traditions, but I really don't buy into any of the mainstream stuff. I hope that everybody else can do enough research on their own without falling into propaganda mainstream outlets to be able to discover their own version of what good and evil should be. And that should be the greatest judge of that should be yourself. If you're in a healthy self, you should know what good and evil is.
Yeah, just like what I told you about the insect. Like that's good and evil right there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yo, thank you infinitely for this. I bless the space.
I bless the space.
Rin Pyoto Shakai Jin Retsu Zaizen Ko. May all the armies of heavens descend upon this planet and guard all the sacred beings of the Sangha.
What's the sangha?
The Sangha is the sacred family, like the Ummah to Islamic people is the sacred family. This like the sacred kindred spirits family, if you want. The Sangha is the same principle in Eastern philosophies and Buddhism. So it's a holy family of warriors and protectors and magicians and guardians and monks and oracles and prophetesses and lamas and bodhisattvas and rinpoches and karmapas and tirthankaras. It's like all the sacred protectors, the supernatural beings, elves, fairies, every being that we think are mythological occurrences that have only existed in the past. But if they've existed in the past, synchronicity and coincidences describe that they will re-exist again in the future, and they coexist with the present in alternate dimensions. Even through the memory of that in quantum physics is enough to bring them back alive in spirit form. So remember that, good and evil are all around you. Choices of good and evil are all around us, but the sacred family is everywhere, and we know who our sacred family is.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you.
No,
That's very meaningful. And
thank you.
another thing that I want to add in to the podcast series is pulling a tarot card for the reading, for like just
Yo,
podcast. So the tarot card that I picked today is the wheel card. And
wow.
yeah, so I bless the space, and I hope we are all on the perpetual evolution of clearing karmic energies, you know?
And the re-evolution, the revolution of the wheel, the karmic wheel, the dharmic wheel. We are not eternally stuck in samsara. Samsara is a beautiful goddess. She is the great Sara. Maya is a beautiful goddess. No demonization of the divine feminine. We live this truly the way that we ought to and that was meant to be.
Yeah. Bro, I'm actually really sad that I killed that insect.
Oh, yo, think about it and say some prayers. The insect will be a beautiful guardian in the future. Trust me on that one.
Yeah.
You didn't do that on purpose.
All right. I bless the space. Thank you, bro. Boom.
Peace to all of you. Much love. Positive energy activates constant elevation.
Yes.